Hi, friends. Welcome to The Deep Breathe. My name is Gary,
I'm Ezra.
and we are going to be talking today about creativity. Everybody is creative, every person is creative. Creativity doesn't mean being able to draw or being able to paint or dance or whatever it is that we think of as creative or creative people. Um,
I think that's the beauty, though, of humankind and kind of how we've developed and evolved over time is that our brains have so much space to do this. Like we have the hands we need. Most of us have the mental capacity to create whatever it is we have our mind on. And I don't think it needs to, right, like you said, it doesn't need to be a painting or a drawing. I think every single day we're creating things around us. You cannot survive if you're not creating anything, right?
yes.
So it's like, how does that become something that's enjoyable for you, something that you feel comfortable sharing with other people? There's a lot of different things that can happen from one little creation, and I think careers are built off of that. Like if you find something that you love to make and people, you can monetize that in a certain way. I think
Absolutely.
it's just kind of it's the beautiful part of being human is creative energy.
I mean, it is being human. And I love what you said about where everything that we do, we're creating something, right? I mean, you can look at any object around you. I can look at this chair. Somebody had to imagine it
Hmm.
and actually make it. Like, and it doesn't even have to be, it can be, and that's for everything that's around us. So, um, I love that. Ezra, why don't you talk about your process?
I'll, I think ever since I was a young kid, I've kind of been enthralled by nature and flowers and the beach and just things around me. My aunt told a story of me walking by flowers once and was like, I was just saying pretty flower as like a 2 year old all the time. And I think that's just kind of like, as a kid, I was just so inspired by so many things. And I think as I grew up, I held on to that so much. So a few months ago, I guess it started. I went to this little cafe and these artists were painting, and they like I sat with them and they're like, "Hey, are you an artist? Do you want to join us?" And for a second, I paused. I'm like, "Am I an artist? Am I not an artist? Wait, hold up. I don't know." I said no, but I said no. I'm not an artist, and I literally answered the question, "Am I an artist?" No, 6 months ago, and now it's like all I do. So I think it
I feel
can,
this.
yeah, like it can happen. It really can.
And what I want to point out too is that for you, what is so amazing, and this was one of the signs that like was just in my face, was you just fucking started. Like you didn't sit there and talk about it. You weren't scared about it. You just started and started creating, just drawing and putting it out
Yeah,
there, and you were successful really quickly. Like,
yeah.
with no other background except for, like, the things that you said, but like, I mean, with no background in, like, you like, I have a background in it. Like, I've been doing it. I had been doing it. I have the degree or whatever, but you just started and you put it out there, and I feel like that, if I could say one thing, or like one of a few things about this process, is sometimes you just have to fucking put it out there.
Yeah.
Like, you just do it
You would
and
never know. It's
you would
like
never know.
no
Yeah.
one knows what's going on up here unless it's
Yeah.
out there.
Right.
But I think a part of creativity, though, is internal. Obviously, you
Mhm.
have to have it comes from somewhere. But like we were talking about before when we were talking about making this video, like I don't know, like creativity doesn't always have to be displayed to others, but so often as a society we are built up by other people with their reaction, how they love something, what they buy, what they consume.
Yeah.
So I think a part of me starting was trying to, and I've always loved sharing on my Instagram and Facebook. It's just a part of my natural flow of things. Like I think physically starting it and wanting immediately to show it to people was a huge part of that snowball going. It was like, you know what? I want to put this online. I want to show my friends. I'm excited about this. And we can kind of talk about how excitedness and creativity, like usually when you're creating something, you gotta have some. You don't have to be excited about it, but I do think that's a natural. What do you think? Like, how
I
does that
mean,
interact?
for me, I think, like, I get really excited about it. Even talking about this, like, there's a passion, like there's a fire there. And And there isn't always, though. So that's what I want to say about that is like, it's something that's supposed to ignite you, I think, and that's how you'll find it, and that's how you'll know that that's what you're supposed to be doing. But there are times in the creative process, there's a process and a cycle to everything, including the creative process. Even if you are a famous artist, or that is your life, making art or whatever it is that you're creating is your life, there is going to be a time where you're just maybe you hit a wall where you're just maybe not going to enjoy it as much. And that's what happened for me in my process. After I got out of college, I was like, I don't enjoy this anymore, so maybe this isn't what I'm supposed to be doing. And then I quit.
Mm.
And going back, like looking back on it now, it was like, no, that was just the end of a cycle. And maybe I should have taken a break, or maybe saw things from a different perspective and maybe played around creatively in other things. But that wasn't a sign that I should quit. And so
Does one ever fully quit being creative though? You know what I mean? Were you still creative in other ways,
yeah,
but just not in
just
physical
not
art
the
form?
way,
Your main
yeah,
way you channel it.
just not the way that I feel like I'm supposed to be doing it, which
Mhm.
is like making drawings and paintings.
Right.
Was I creative in other ways? Probably, but not in ways that really fulfilled me.
That's huge.
Um,
So maybe I was thinking more excitement. It's fulfillment too, because
oh
it's
yeah,
got to fulfill you.
absolutely.
That's
But something that you're really passionate about and you're excited about, like us creating this channel, I am so excited about sharing this with people. Like
hmm
this is, I can feel it inside of me, one of my passions. And it but and so that's another little like trick or tool if you're like I have no idea how, not a creative person, is what is something that lights you up, and think about when you were a kid. Like Ezra shared that when he was a kid he did certain things in nature and flowers and all that stuff. Was there something when you were a kid or a teenager or 10 or whatever age group when you were younger and you got really excited about something? Maybe you made stuff out of mud. Maybe you liked playing in the dirt. Maybe you liked, I don't know, gathering leaves or flowers or whatever. And you can use that as a guide to tap into your creativity.
right.
An exercise you can do is that I would journal about that, and also what the other thing too is journal what brings you joy. Like what is it that truly brings you joy?
And journaling can be just jotting notes down on your notes app on your iPhone.
Mm-hmm.
That's what I do. I don't carry a journal around with me,
Yeah.
but if I'm inspired by something that I see, hear, or think, I will put that down, and it is helpful.
It's really important to make notes. Like, yeah. So I actually have a physical journal, but if I don't carry it around with me, and I will also jot notes down on my phone. If like just a few nights ago, I was laying on my couch. There was a journal there. I just didn't feel it. I was on my phone, and I had an inspiration to write a poem, and I just wrote a poem on my phone. Like,
I'm picking up words with creativity here. We have excitement, fulfillment, and inspiration.
yeah.
So far, those are like three big ones, and I think I want to touch on inspiration for a second because I
Okay.
think that's a big part of obviously everything. Not everything created, but a lot of it is inspired from something,
Yeah.
or some essence, something going on that inspires the physical form of what you're creating. So we went to a cafe last week, and I sat down. I did my line drawing, got my line drawing stuff out, and I'm like, what am I going to draw today? You went to the bathroom, and I just felt, I like birds. Why not just capture that? I don't know, like it just felt right in that moment, and it just was something that was easy to do for me in that moment, and it spoke to my soul like on a deeper level. I guess what I'm trying to say is that inspiration doesn't have to be something that you take notes about and journal about. It can happen out of nowhere in a second. You can plan it to happen. If you sit down with a blank canvas, you can tap into something that will inspire you at some point. You don't have to. I guess it's different for everyone though, because people are on a different journey with their level of comfortability in that realm of creating something. But
I think inspiration can happen in different ways. Yeah, there's the inspiration that happens when things just come to you. But I think also sometimes you have to seek inspiration, because I've had times where I've been completely uninspired, and I'm like, ugh.
mm-hmm.
And so I have to make that effort to maybe look at other artists, or maybe it doesn't even have to be another artist. It can be maybe listening to music or reading a book to
Traveling or
get
something.
traveling, to
Yeah.
get re-inspired. And I can do that for myself. And I think that is a big thing that, like, in the past I've forgotten that I can do.
Mm.
Um, and it's so cool when I'm re-inspired. I'm like, oh, okay, yeah, this is why I do this. Like, this is,
I just thought of something real quick
yeah,
about the word inspired. In spirit, like inspired, like it's like a
inspirita, yes,
inspiritus or whatever. I
yeah,
don't know if this is all research or whatever, but there's something out of body about this inspiration because
oh yeah,
you're not it's not your it's your you're channeling something.
yes.
It's like what is it telling? What is this spark or energy or whatever you call it telling me to do today?
Well, and then if we're relating it back to breathing, inspire, expire. So, like, it's all part of a cycle too, and also remembering that as well. But yeah, I love that you brought that
What
up.
would you say the creativity cycle is, though? Like, if you had to name steps, what would you say
Oh,
those
that's a good
are?
question.
Does it start with inspiration or does it start with excitement? Like, how does it start?
I think, oh man,
We didn't write any of this down. I don't
I
know that.
know. And I actually want to write this down. Okay, so if I'm gonna, like, think of it off the top of my head, I would say that the process of creativity would be very loosely, without really thinking about it, inspiration. I would say imagination.
Mm.
I think imagination is huge. Imagination, I think, in as adults, is highly underrated. If you can imagine something, you can create it. I truly believe that. And
Interesting.
so imagination is not just for kids. It absolutely is. Everybody should be imagining. So inspiration, imagination, execution, like actually taking action. And again, whether it's for yourself, it can be for yourself. It doesn't have to be something that you're putting out there.
Mm-hmm.
It can absolutely be for yourself. And then maybe one day you will put it out there. But if you think of your favorite artists, like a musician or a painter or whatever it is. If they were too afraid to put their stuff out there, you never
Yeah.
would have heard of that person, right? So everybody needs to put their stuff out there. But anyway, you don't have to. You can do that for yourself. I digressed a little bit. So inspiration, imagination, action.
Action.
And then in the action process, so this is like, so if you're thinking about a cycle, like a life and death cycle, everything has a life and death cycle. And I don't actually mean physical death and physical life. It could just be the endings and beginnings. So inspiration, the thought, the spirit that comes down into your head, that's the inspiration. All right? So that's the beginning of the cycle. That's the life. And then as you go down, you have the imagination that you think in your head, and then as you move down even further, maybe you start speaking about it, then
Mm.
you take action on it.
Mm-hmm.
And so we have spirit up here, and as you move down, you manifestation, right? So this is the action, and then in that action, you might experience little deaths or endings in that. So, like, for me, I got distracted from doing the creative thing, and I diverged from it
Mm.
because I thought it was something that I wasn't supposed to be doing. But maybe that was just an ending of one of the processes in my creative process, and then I was and then, go back to it. And I eventually did go back to it. But what I'm saying is like, in this process, you might have to
It doesn't look the
change.
same for right.
It doesn't look the same for everybody. It's not linear. It doesn't look the same for
I think
everybody.
creativity is like it's just a word. We literally have one word. It's one word to describe the everything possible under the sun that we can do.
Yeah.
It's just describing that literally. I think creativity itself, because there's the word create, and there's the word creativity, And it's almost like it's like there is a little bit of an artistic undertone with the word creativity, or like not as, you know, you can create a house, you can create a table, but creativity is pulling in the imagination and the inspiration and the other kind of unexplainable forces that come into creativity, I guess. Like a beautiful, like beauty is a whole other topic, but kind of the mysteriousness. I think creativity is a mysterious word in a way, because it's not it's not as segmented as creating something. It's creativity. It's like what else is going on, which I think is the most beautiful thing about humanity, is that creativity, even for identical twins, is going to look exceptionally different, because it's just how the brain works.
Well, and I think our English language too limits, like puts a limit on what things, it's really hard to, I think you're right. Creativity explains, so can be so, and but we're like diminishing a little bit by trying to explain it.
Right.
When really, when you tap into whatever it is you're creating, it is spirit flowing through you. You're just the vessel, and that way it's a feeling, and it's
Well,
hard to describe
I
that.
kind of want to transition to talking about more. I know it sucks that we have to work, but kind of helping our viewers and helping people kind of, if they have a job that doesn't necessarily lend itself to a lot of creativity in an artistic sense, how they can implement creativity mindsets in their day-to-day life or their job. Like, how would you turn a customer service representative? I guess you're creatively working with conversation. You're a linguist at that point, like creating customer satisfaction with your work. I mean, I think every job has to have creativity. The only job I can think of that doesn't have creativity is, I don't. One could argue like a post office person, like is just going to houses and dropping like a deliver. I don't know. Like I don't want to
Yeah.
I can't think of a job that's not creative.
But again, I think it just depends on like what your definition of creativity is. Like for me, I've had jobs where I was just like working in an office and that just didn't fuel my
Mm.
creative fire. Now, could I have done something to make it more creative? Maybe. I don't know.
Good
But
point.
I didn't. Um and you know, it doesn't have to, you don't have to have a job where you're using, I mean, for me, it's, I want a job where I'm using my creativity. Um,
But not everyone's like
but
that.
not everyone's like that. Maybe you really enjoy doing whatever it is
Right.
that maybe isn't creative in the sense that like we're talking about it, and maybe on your off time, maybe you like to build furniture after work. I
Mm-hmm.
mean, you're channeling that creativity into something, um,
Right.
into creating something. So whether it's your actual job or a hobby or whatever it is, I think as long as you're, we all have this creative energy that needs to be used, and if you don't use it, it turns into something else that I don't think is positive. So just on an energetic level, if we're just talking about energy and we're talking about the chakras and stuff, which I won't get super into, but each energy center in your body, a chakra, means something, and we have a creative chakra. And if we're not like fueling that, if we're not using that creativity for something, it
It's kind of like, I just thought of idle hands are the devil's playthings. Like if you're not doing
yeah.
something with your, I mean that's a biblical whatever, but it's like an energy block. It's like you have
Yeah.
to channel energy into building something outside of yourself, because if you don't, it's gonna
It's going to
affect you.
turn into
You'll
some,
find other things
yeah.
that can numb that.
It's going to turn into something else, and maybe not in a good way.
Mm-hmm.
Whether that turns in, so our creativity comes from our second chakra, which is also the same, the
Interesting.
sex chakra.
So
So sexual energy and creative energy are, and that's a whole nother
well,
episode that I can
on a
go through.
personal note, I've been dealing with horrific lower back sciatic issues. That's the second chakra, right? That's right
Yeah,
here.
yeah.
So maybe that's just like the fire that's going along with my art and my creativity.
Well, and that's what I am saying is like, you know, everything has an energetic root to it. Like if you have a physical pain in your body, and let's say it does happen to be in your sciatic or your hip area, yeah, like the physical body, you can go in and try different things, and that might help. But I think the root of the situation or the problem is more energetic.
Mm-hmm.
So
I want to ask another thing. I think mental health are just coming from a lower state, like a depressive state. I think implementing creative things in your day-to-day life will be so monumental in coming out of that and becoming happier again, or like lessening your symptoms of depression. I think if you can, and I know that when you're feeling that low, you're not going to want to take the steps to become more creative. But I think you can in counseling it was called pleasant activity scheduling, but I kind of like pleasant creativity scheduling as a way to, budget or like set apart an hour a night, an hour a day to create something, whether that be a mock screenplay or, pottery, anything that is just outside of yourself. That's like a cool way, I think, to try to get out of a lower mindset, like a lower mood.
yeah, well, that's another thing I wanted to touch on with you is the mental health and creativity. Like, for your personal experience, how does creativity help you in your mental health?
Well, I will let everyone know I am bipolar 1, which means, in my personal case, I have a lot of mania. The term mania now is way more understood than it was 10 years ago when I was diagnosed, 12 years ago. No, 14 years ago. But basically, I would get so creatively inspired that I would not sleep, not eat for days. And at that point, I'm in psychosis and I lose track of the world and reality, and it's not sustainable and it's not healthy in any way. And it's a huge danger to myself. I'm not really a danger to others, but I could walk out into traffic naked on a Sunday morning, Anyway, so I think...
Have you done that?
I've done some interesting things. I won't get too in depth. I don't know what YouTube allows. No, I'm just kidding. But I think that I am finally at a place after being hospitalized many times where I'm able to channel my creative flow and produce awesome, cool stuff, but not lose touch of reality. And I think that comes into the madness, genius kind of border, because I think throughout history, without psychotropic medications, most of the creatives that we know about had bipolar and had I don't know. I'm not a scientist. I think a lot of people, Beethoven, Sylvia Plath. I'm sure.
Like Van Gogh.
Everyone.
You can think of a lot of artists.
They got so invested in their creative path that it's just kind of, sometimes it happens to some of us. We just get so enveloped fully into our process and what we're creating, and we feel this connect. Whenever I went manic, I thought I was like a godly angel, like I had to tell the world about this or that. And I have some of this art, and it's incredible. I made first time I was hospitalized, for 2 days, I worked on our project in the hospital room. They let me do it. They wouldn't give me scissors, but I had like 50 magazines, and I just ripped up little pieces of paper and made these beautiful mosaic collage, giant things that are insane. I might link it at some point to one of our videos, but it was a beautiful Eiffel Tower made of eyes with all this rainbow stuff going on, and it is like, my mom saw that. She's like, Ezra, we have to save this shit. This is like amazing stuff. And I think I just got so inspired, and I think those words, like, mainly inspiration really came to me because I think when you have, it's all about levels and energy, and I think if you allow too much inspiration into your brain or whatever energy flow, you'll lose touch with reality because you are channeling something outside of yourself. And the moment you just open up to so much inspiration and drive, you can lose sense of what's important in terms of feeding yourself and sleeping and all that. But I do think that at this point with my stability, art is so crucial to my life, and it's kind of how I'm at. It brings me peace because it used to make me go above. Now it's just kind of like keeping me level.
It brings you back to yourself.
Brings me back to myself. But I do think that a lot of people these days, especially now with all the conversation around mental health and art in general and creativity in general, I think there's just so many avenues for people to learn more about it and tap into that. And there's art therapy and there's music therapy, and And it's a beautiful place to be at this point in where we've come with the awareness of how influential creativity and art and music and creation is with mental health in general. It's so crucial.
I mean, it brings you back to spirit. It brings you, it's part of the spiritual path, whether you are on that path or not. If you are a creative person and you're creating, you are channeling that. And it truly is, for me, it helped me remember who I was, and it really did help bring me back to myself. And it's a way to transcend time. Like time, I mean, time is an illusion. It's just something that we have on this dimension, on this planet.
Mm.
And we are so limited, and we limit ourselves by just the concept of time. And when you can tap into something that you can transcend that,
It's a really good
it's I don't even
There's no words.
There's no words. It's something that you just
Which
have to
I had
experience.
a thought for a second. So I just know about in Aztec and Mayan culture that the artisans, the ones that were creating the jewelry and the clothing and all the beautiful art, they were held up as just as high as the priests and the kings and all that. And I think even in Egyptian, just going back millennia, creativity looked a lot different than it does today. But I think it still is the same, as that people felt this urge to just connect to something else and show that to the world, because that's really what it is. You're connecting. I think connection is another word. So we have inspiration, connection, fulfillment, excitement. I think connection and creativity is huge, because you are connecting yourself to something else that's unexplainable. And I think throughout the dawn of civilization, people have done that. And I think even animals, like we were talking about before, like spider webs, birds singing, beavers building dams, and the feathers of a peacock.
They're constantly animals are constantly creating, if you really look at it.
But are they creative? That's the, can humans only be creative? Like, what animals are creative? You know what I mean? Our creativity, because I think that dolphins are very smart, but they don't have the hands to produce they can't produce anything, like they can't build anything, I don't think.
Right. Well, I think
So
I
how do you
think
define it?
creativity is. That's a really good question.
It's a philosophy question.
It's a really good question. I mean, we as humans we're the smartest animals on the planet, so we have the capacity to create a lot more, I think, or to be more creative, and maybe definitely in ways that like other life can't, because we are able to do more things. But I think we were created. Every living thing on this planet, I think, is creative in some way.
In its own
In
might
its
be
own
limited, but it's its own, yeah.
Yeah, but you know what?
A tree will grow around and do all,
But a being, if there was a being even higher than us, can look at us and be like, they're creative in their limited
so
ways.
true.
So, like,
Wow.
it's just, I think it's, I think it just, I think it's just different. It's just perspective,
Yeah.
But I wanted to give so I looked up the definition for creativity. It's the ability to transcend traditional ideas, rules, patterns, relationships, or the like, and to create meaningful new ideas, forms, methods, interpretation, etc.
Where would that come from?
This is the
Because transcend sounds I didn't realize I would use that word.
Transcend.
Cool. Merriam-Webster.
I mean, but that's
Wow.
what you're doing.
Yeah.
Though. You're transcending time. I mean, that's what I was just saying, is like you're transcending time.
New ideas, forms, methods, interpretations, etc. Originality, progressiveness, or imagination. Interesting. Transcend traditional ideas.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, you're imagining something new.
Yeah.
And going back to what you were saying about like ancient civilizations, I think that, back in the days where, what was it called? Where royalty would like hire or like take care of artisans, because I feel like they were more valued in that society
Of course.
than we are, because they were literally taken care of.
Right. Right.
And I guess
in a sense, I mean, celebrity creators have achieved that level of extreme, not necessarily creativity, but extreme exposure of what they're creating.
Yeah.
And I think that's a whole other topic, is like,
Yeah.
is how fame works and your level of influence and all that. But I think a big part of celebrity or a big part of creativity and fame is how much your new ideas resonate with the masses. I'm just thinking of Lady Gaga right now for some reason, but her creative take on music and music videos and fashion and style and everything was so creatively unique and original that it took the world by storm. And I think that's really, and how we have social media today and everything going on TikTok and Instagram, like there's so much of that going on that to stand out takes a lot of work.
Yeah.
But that's a whole other thing.
Well, I was thinking more of like, you know, back in the day you had patrons. Like if you were an artist, you had patrons that would literally pay you to make art. And so we have some of that today. Obviously, there are people, you know, I think I heard Johnny Depp paid an artist for 5 years to like just create art, and he just like paid for everything. But like even things like Patreon, where you're trying to find people who to just give you money so that you can create. Mm-hmm. And I think that was a lot more prevalent then than it is now, or maybe it's just changed forms a little bit now, but I don't think it's as prevalent. I think that's what I was trying to say.
I didn't really know much about that, but that makes sense. I felt like there were probably like super skilled, you know, portrait artists in the Renaissance times or whatever that would probably be tied to one family and do all their portraits and be very well taken care of.
It just feels to me like they were more valued, and even like in the yoga world, you know, healers back then and yogis were taken care of, like they did their work because people took care of them.
Or they survived because people took care of them. Because
people took care of them. Like they were
because you're
fed.
Creating, you're not necessarily hunting animals or, you know, or creating a house. Like, you know, there's things that you're not doing while you're creating that need to sustain life.
That need to be done, right? And so that's the struggle today. Which with, you know, being creative, like doing art, for me it would be doing art, and having a yoga business and a healing business is like I have to figure out I have to be able to survive and pay my bills. I don't have somebody saying, "Oh, you're doing like this good for society. Here is the resources that you need." And I'm saying like back then they had that. Like they were taken care of.
Well, what do you think? Do you think that the drive to or the need to monetize your art or your creativity is harmful, hurtful, or neutral? Or do you just think it's just the way of the world, and that's just, you know, like, is it good for creativity, or is it harmful for creativity?
I don't think it
That's a whole thing.
I think that goes along with what I'm saying, though, is like we live in a world now where unfortunately like we need money to pay bills and to survive. And as much as I would love to do my work for free, to just do it because I enjoy it and to help people, it's just not realistic, because I have to be able to survive and pay my bills, and even not even just to survive, but I'd love to thrive too. Yeah. Like I want to be able to travel and have and gain the inspiration to do what it is that I love to do, and in that I'm still helping the world.
Absolutely.
So it all comes down to an exchange of energy, you know. I'm giving to this, and that energy is going to come back to me.
Monetarily, but it's still...
Money is energy, though. Money is energy.
I think I'd like to close with what you just mentioned about kind of helping the world. I think that's a good kind of way to kind of wrap everything up.
Yeah.
Because I do think that what would the world be without art and without creativity and without people that are transcending law? I mean, we would be living in 1985. I mean, we would be living in a very regimented,
not a world
white
that I
walls.
want to be in. Not a world that well, that's what I mean. Like people I think have this fear of putting themselves out there, and it's like, thank God not everybody has that fear, because the people who inspire me, look, that's just you. If you had the fear of not putting yourself out there, or not even like showing your work, I would never have been as inspired to start mine up like that. So you really are, people are watching you when you don't even know it, and you really are making a ripple. You're creating a ripple effect. Even if you're just saying, "Hey, I got back to drawing today," because before I really got back to drawing, the beginning of this year, I drew something for 40 days, and some of it I did put online because I was comfortable with that, but most of it I did on my own without, and that even created a ripple effect. Like, if you are doing something that you are supposed to, and the universe will tell you,
Yes.
it really will. If you pay attention to what's going on around you, if you really tap into that thing in yourself, you'll know, and you absolutely are creating a ripple effect. People are watching. You will inspire someone when you don't even know it. So put yourself out there eventually. Maybe not at first. Do things for yourself, absolutely, but put yourself out there, because every single one of us is meant to be creative and to create something in our own way, and it is needed. It is needed. The world needs it from every single one of us. So take action, do it, keep inspiring yourself.
I think you're hitting it on that. Yeah, just starting is where it all comes from, and
Yeah.
if it's not going to be produced out of it's, no one knows what's going on up here until it is out there.
And fear is just an illusion. All the shit that you tell yourself is just
Yeah.
ego. It's just fear. It's saying, you just have to, like, create a mantra and to get past all that shit, because that's all it is. And once you get past it and you start doing it, and you start doing what your soul really needs, and what really feels good, it's really tapping into what feels good. You'll just know, and it'll flow. And that's the beautiful part of the creative process.
Absolutely, the flow.
Getting into the flow.
Well, thank you guys for watching, and
Yeah.
we're going to end our video with Vibe High Friends. That's the way
Yeah.
we're going to close our.
If you have any questions
Yes.
about, or want us to elaborate on anything for a different episode, please write down in the comments. And
Stay
yeah.
tuned for our next video, and we will see you soon.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Vibe high.